Please re-listen the video several times to learn the vocabulary properly. Subscribe for more. Each student received a certificate. Every single student, one by one. Every morning, she goes for a run. Each and every morning without fail. Each member has a unique role. Every individual member separately. Every car in the lot was inspected. Each car, without exception. Each book on the shelf tells a story. Every single book, one by one. Every child needs love and care. Each and every child. Each artist brings a different perspective. Every artist, individually. Every weekend, they play soccer. Each weekend, consistently. Each day brings new challenges. Every day, one after the other. Every employee contributes to the project. Each employee, without exception. Each step takes her closer to the goal. Every single step, one by one. Every bird in the sky was flying south. Each bird, as part of the group. Each word in the poem was carefully chosen. Every word, individually. Every house on the street was decorated. Each house, without exception. Each student has their own dreams. Every single student, individually. Every song on the album is a hit. Each song, as part of the collection. Each painting in the gallery is a masterpiece. Every painting, one by one. Every summer, they visit the beach. Each summer, consistently. Each chapter of the book was thrilling. Every chapter, individually. Every recipe in the book was easy to follow. Each recipe, without exception. Each morning brings a new opportunity. Every morning, individually. Every step counts in a marathon. Each step, without exception. Each student in the class answered a question. Every student, one by one. Every leaf on the tree turned yellow in autumn. Each leaf, without exception. Each song they sang was filled with emotion. Every song, individually. Every book in the library was catalogued. Each book, without exception. Each member of the team played a vital role. Every team member, individually. Every bird in the garden was singing. Each bird, as part of the group. Each recipe added a unique flavor to the meal. Every recipe, individually. Every student had a different perspective. Each student, without exception. Each painting depicted a different scene. Every painting, one by one. Every house had a garden in front. Each house, without exception. Each volunteer contributed their time generously. Every volunteer, individually. Every child in the room was laughing. Each child, without exception. Each step on the ladder must be taken with care. Every step, one by one. Every page of the diary told a different story. Each page, without exception. Each word he spoke was measured and precise. Every word, individually. Every star in the sky seemed to twinkle brighter. Each star, as part of the whole. Each guest brought a different dish to the party. Every guest, one by one. Every answer in the quiz was correct. Each answer, without exception. Each moment of the day is precious. Every moment, one by one. Every student in the class brings a unique talent. Each student, without exception. Each leaf that falls in autumn tells a story. Every leaf, individually. Every room in the house was painted a different color. Each room, without exception. Each question in the survey was carefully considered. Every question, one by one. Every bird in the sky soared gracefully. Each bird, as part of the group. Each guest at the party had a wonderful time. Every guest, individually. Every plant in the garden needs water. Each plant, without exception. Each chapter in the book was captivating. Every chapter, individually. Every cloud in the sky moved slowly. Each cloud, as part of the whole. Each student's answer was different. Every student's, one by one. Every car on the road was heading to the city. Each car, without exception. Each piece of the puzzle was essential. Every piece, individually. Every apple on the tree was ripe. Each apple, without exception. Each song on the radio was cheerful. Every song, individually. Every star in the galaxy has its own story. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player on the team has a role. Every player, individually. Every book in the series was exciting. Each book, without exception. Each petal of the flower was a different shade. Every petal, one by one. Every child in the class is intelligent. Each child, without exception. Each step he took was cautious. Every step, individually. Every song they played was memorable. Each song, without exception. Each word she wrote was powerful. Every word, individually. Every tree in the forest was tall and majestic. Each tree, without exception. Each painting in the museum was a masterpiece. Every painting, individually. Every step in the recipe was easy to follow. Each step, without exception. Each joke he told was funnier than the last. Every joke, one by one. Every bird that flew past was a different species. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's project was impressive. Every student's, individually. Every leaf on the ground was a reminder of fall. Each leaf, without exception. Each wave in the ocean was powerful. Every wave, one by one. Every book on the shelf was an adventure waiting to be opened. Each book, without exception. Each song on her playlist was her favorite. Every song, individually. Every star in the sky was shining brightly. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the game had a chance to win. Every player, individually. Every flower in the garden was in full bloom. Each flower, without exception. Each chapter in her life was different. Every chapter, individually. Every bird in the cage sang beautifully. Each bird, as part of the group. Each guest at the hotel received a welcome gift. Every guest, individually. Every leaf on the tree contributes to its beauty. Each leaf, without exception. Each step forward was a step towards progress. Every step, one by one. Every book he read enriched his mind. Each book, without exception. Each painting she created was filled with emotion. Every painting, individually. Every house in the neighborhood had its own character. Each house, without exception. Each member of the choir sang beautifully. Every member, individually. Every flower in the bouquet was carefully selected. Each flower, without exception. Each lesson he taught was invaluable. Every lesson, individually. Every bird on the branch chirped happily. Each bird, as part of the group. Each guest at the event felt special. Every guest, individually. Every leaf that fluttered down was like a dance. Each leaf, without exception. Each wave crashing on the shore was mesmerizing. Every wave, one by one. Each student's handwriting was unique. Every student's, individually. Every bird in the sky was a wonder to behold. Each bird, as part of the group. Each page of the calendar marked a new day. Every page, one by one. Every house in the neighborhood was lit up for the holidays. Each house, without exception. Each piece of advice he gave was thoughtful. Every piece, individually. Every star in the night sky twinkled. Each star, as part of the whole. Each guest at the dinner brought a story to share. Every guest, individually. Every flower in the field swayed in the wind. Each flower, without exception. Each chapter of his life was an adventure. Every chapter, individually. Every bird that nested in the tree was protected. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's project reflected their creativity. Every student's, individually. Every house on the block had a different design. Each house, without exception. Each piece of the machine was crucial for its operation. Every piece, individually. Every apple in the orchard was ripe for picking. Each apple, without exception. Each song he composed was a hit. Every song, individually. Every star in the constellation had a name. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the tournament had a chance to shine. Every player, individually. Every book on the bestseller list was a must-read. Each book, without exception. Each petal on the flower was delicate and beautiful. Every petal, one by one. Every child in the neighborhood played in the park. Each child, without exception. Each step in the process was important. Every step, individually. Every song on the playlist set the mood for the party. Each song, without exception. Each word in the poem had meaning. Every word, individually. Every tree in the orchard bore fruit. Each tree, without exception. Each painting in the exhibit was a visual treat. Every painting, individually. Every step on the journey was memorable. Each step, without exception. Each joke in his repertoire made everyone laugh. Every joke, one by one. Every bird that visited the feeder was a delight. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's essay was a reflection of their thoughts. Every student's, individually. Every leaf that turned color signified autumn's arrival. Each leaf, without exception. Each wave that broke on the shore was soothing. Every wave, one by one. Every book he read added to his knowledge. Each book, without exception. Each painting she saw inspired her. Every painting, individually. Every house in the village had a story to tell. Each house, without exception. Each member of the band played perfectly. Every member, individually. Every flower in the vase brightened the room. Each flower, without exception. Each lesson in the course was valuable. Every lesson, individually. Every bird in the flock had a role. Each bird, as part of the group. Each guest at the wedding felt the joy. Every guest, individually. Every house on the street participated in the event. Each house, without exception. Each piece of jewelry she wore was elegant. Every piece, individually. Every apple pie she baked was delicious. Each apple pie, without exception. Each song he sang touched the audience's heart. Every song, individually. Every star in the universe has its own story. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player on the field gave their best. Every player, individually. Every book in his collection was a classic. Each book, without exception. Each petal of the rose was perfect. Every petal, one by one. Every child's laughter in the park was a melody. Each child's, without exception. Each step in the ladder led him higher. Every step, individually. Each painting in the collection told a different story. Every painting, individually. Every bird in the forest sang a different tune. Each bird, as part of the group. Each page in her diary revealed her secrets. Every page, one by one. Every house on the lane had its own charm. Each house, without exception. Each piece of advice she received was helpful. Every piece, individually. Every star in the sky guided sailors at sea. Each star, as part of the whole. Each guest at the conference brought new ideas. Every guest, individually. Every flower in the bouquet added to its beauty. Each flower, without exception. Each chapter in his story was exciting. Every chapter, individually. Every bird that perched on the tree was a sight to behold. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's artwork was displayed in the hall. Every student's, individually. Every house in the cul-de-sac had a festive look. Each house, without exception. Each piece of the model was meticulously crafted. Every piece, individually. Every apple in the basket was fresh and juicy. Each apple, without exception. Each song she listened to brought back memories. Every song, individually. Every star in the sky seemed to tell its own story. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the league strived for victory. Every player, individually. Every book in his study was a source of wisdom. Each book, without exception. Each petal on the daisy made it look more beautiful. Every petal, one by one. Every child in the choir sang with enthusiasm. Each child, without exception. Each step towards his goal was challenging. Every step, individually. Every song at the concert was energetically performed. Each song, without exception. Each word in her letter was filled with emotion. Every word, individually. Every tree in the grove stood tall and proud. Each tree, without exception. Each painting in the studio was a work of art. Every painting, individually. Every step in his journey was an adventure. Each step, without exception. Each joke in the book made her laugh. Every joke, one by one. Every bird in the morning chorus was melodious. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's science project was innovative. Every student's, individually. Every house in the row was painted a different color. Each house, without exception. Each piece of artwork in the gallery was stunning. Every piece, individually. Every apple in the pie was perfectly spiced. Each apple, without exception. Each song on her album told a different story. Every song, individually. Every star in the night was a guide for travelers. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the match showed great skill. Every player, individually. Every book in the library offered a new adventure. Each book, without exception. Each petal of the sunflower was like a ray of sunshine. Every petal, one by one. Every child's smile in the room was infectious. Each child's, without exception. Each step he took was filled with determination. Every step, individually. Every song the birds sang was a celebration of nature. Each song, without exception. Each word in the story was carefully chosen. Every word, individually. Every tree in the park provided shade and comfort. Each tree, without exception. Each painting she admired was a source of inspiration. Every painting, individually. Every step of the recipe was easy to follow. Each step, without exception. Each joke she told lightened the mood. Every joke, one by one. Every bird at the feeder was a different color. Each bird, as part of the group. Each student's contribution to the project was valuable. Every student's, individually. Every house in the development had its own personality. Each house, without exception. Each piece of the sculpture was integral to the whole. Every piece, individually. Every apple in the crate was selected for its quality. Each apple, without exception. Each song he wrote was a reflection of his soul. Every song, individually. Every star in the firmament was a wonder. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the game had their own strategy. Every player, individually. Each recipe in the cookbook was a family secret. Every recipe, individually. Every star in the sky contributed to the beautiful night view. Each star, as part of the whole. Each player in the team brought their own strengths. Every player, individually. Every house in the street had its festive decorations. Each house, without exception. Each page of the photo album was a window into the past. Every page, one by one. Each flower in the meadow added to the tapestry of colors. Every flower, individually. Every star in the galaxy has its own story to tell. Each star, as part of the whole. Each student in the seminar presented a different idea. Every student, individually. Every house on the block participated in the community event. Each house, without exception. Each page in the history book taught an important lesson. Every page, one by one.